Sun Tzu, for most people, is a name about battle tactics and strategy. Sun Tzu is a Chinese general by entrepreneurs who have very few knowledge, but he is seen as a mystical think that is recognized with thoughts on the philosophy of victory, radiating conflict psychology. Yet this approach does not reflect the fact exactly. Today I'll tell you the battle of finance and the Diha of Sun Tzu, but remember to be subscribed to our channel, like our video and jump like. Before proceeding to your location, when the words and legends of Sun Tzu are examined, a much more interesting grasp arises. Sun Tzu is not attached to the battle, but it was a figure focusing on avoiding them. He did not come to the pursuit of food, discipline, or domination. He was interested in costs. In a world where continuous battles reign, Sun Tzu has become a pioneer of disturbing thoughts. The biggest danger of a nation is the invoice that is not the presence of enemies, then the future. People think that the martial art is only about battle, but this situation is actually about the finance area. Finance represents an area where history, money, power, and history are cut, and nothing is as simple as it looks. To understand the financial statement of Sun Tzu, it is necessary to examine the period it lives, because ideas have developed under the weight of their ambitions. Between 6th and 5th centuries, the early war states period with the late spring and autumn period of China was filled with the mess of split kingdoms. Each could act in line with their own interests to influence the world. Constant battles were experienced. Alliances were installed and destroyed. Armies were growing more every decade due to aristocratic structure, because food and metal supply lines require taxes to maintain large piad mobilizations. The states was not only engaged in battles, but also engaged in making full-scale stress tests of their economy. When a ruler landed an army, he had received a debt for the future. And most often, because of these debts, it could fall into trouble. Most Western viewers associate ancient battle with tactical and protagonism. But during this period, battle was something different before logistics. When an army is moved, there were materials to be transported: wagons, cereals, horses, craftsmen, armored troops, cookers, and all of them have to be paid or feeding. When a campaign lasts for several months, a smaller state could bankrupt. These kingdoms were stuck in the insecure cycle, but they were still going to battle. Before the modern world concept arises, a race of weapons, and this situation brings all the political system to break. Sun Tzu was a representative of a person looking for the solution of economic crisis as a strategy, not a philosopher. Step into this mess. In the West, we romanticize it as an old CEO, but in reality, it was closer to a risk manager. The numbers were standing on costs and realized that governments are not able to fight. If the treasure crashes, there was no meaning of victory. But many managers could never grasp this fact. The army of the enemy was perceived as the greatest threat. Sun Tzu believed that their spending is dangerous. Therefore, the most important principle in the martial art was always coming before, referring to the direction of deprivation or the morality of the land. He said, "The war is a vital issue for the state. It is a process that threatens the society. That is not honorable, devastating, and defending." It is possible to evaluate the rest of the book, which explains how the battle is executed, controlled, and should be as low as possible, if the actual plug was on it to reduce financial risks. Even the most famous thoughts are revealed as hidden economic principles. The greatest art of war is to lower the enemy without battle. This is not a mechanical concept there is a price of avoiding. It is an old way to achieve the desired conclusion without spending wealth. No nation does not benefit from long-term battles, which means a real financial fact. As it took a longer campaign, the functionality of the state also decreases. When speed, efficiency, intelligence, and psychological printing elements are highlighted, these tools become cheaper than military power. Sun Tzu was not trying to win battles. It was an effort to prevent them from bankrupting while the countries are getting war. To understand how revolutionary this thought is, it is necessary to grasp the previous structure of Chinese battles from it. During the centuries, aristocratic elites fought with ritual conflicts by discussing economic costs that are more valuable than results. But when the population increases and the weapons are developing, the battle moved to another dimension. The states began to reform tax systems in order to make money. and to build bureaucratic structures to maintain their army. Struggle has become a national project and a significant financial risk. Sun Tzu was seen that the old mind is suicide. Now the battle could not be considered as a stage for noble gestures or symbolic triumphs. It became a threat of budgeting requiring a cold, junk analysis. For this reason, Sun Tzu is an unprecedented condition on the world. While most military strategy encourages battle, he took the results of battle as a balance. Supply chains have calculated welding troubles and have been selling these conditions for centuries. There was no patience for the generals in the pursuit of victory, without the exception because the modern leaders had grasped a fact that they often forget. Every decision in the battlefield is a decision on a national solution. If you guess, you will not lose only the soldiers but also lose the state. When you examine the battle from economic perspective, the book loses the voice like an ancient poet and starts talking like a spread table. Sun Tzu introduces 5 basic elements that determine the results of the war. Philosophy is a simple real yacht under the language. These are variables related to the cost. Ethics, law, paradise, world, commander, method, and discipline. These are categories related to mystical concepts, not resource management. He asks, what does this battle require? How stable the state? How resistant your people? How efficient your movements? How disciplined your management? The presence of this sentence takes a long-time risk assessment. On the first page of the book, Sun Tzu clearly states that unable to calculate cost, leaders will not develop an effective business strategy. Therefore, most heroes of the book focus on logistics rather than. Sun Tzu separates a special part for the nutrition economy of an army. Logic is brutal. When your army is 20 units away from home, you lose the cost of 100 units of grain. Its emphasis is clear. Long-distance transport increases costs. He states that material handling is ensured more quickly before reaching troops. The protection of an army in this field is weakening agricultural production areas, and these unconscious commanders gain unconscious victory. For a military treatment, it is important that it is not considered strangely in the battle and how much the cost of war is interested. Players should use their resources as effectively as possible, not a tactical comfort, as a financial requirement. The leaders who extend their campaigns are not unstable and materially unconscious. Sun Tzu has understood a fact that modern states often forget. Logistics strategy is very important. Logistics is the basis of strategy. The intelligence understanding predicts the same financial logic. Today, when discussing governments, surveillance budgets, or intelligence agencies, these discussions are framed in terms of security, ethical, or national interest. Sun Tzu has addressed it in terms of cost efficiency. A single spy can prevent an army from going in the wrong direction. A single message can save millions of people. Wise is not the courage or power when he writes what he should achieve beyond ordinary people. For is a term used only for the value of information in the old world. Sun Tzu has seen information as the cheapest and effective weapons instead of access to battle. He is the strategy that understands that information is the same as capital positions of strategic locations. Even the importance of speed, it is basically related to the economy. Speed is the essence of the battle, he writes. Most readers perceive it as a call for aggressive action. But the true meaning of Sun Tzu is deeper. Speed means lower cost. If your enemy invites you to move quickly, then she describes a cost trick to avoid timing and direct conflict costs. Every day, the army takes time to walk nutrition and financial expenses. Victory burns investments while delaying. Victory is gained by maneuver instead of nutrients. The famous choice of Sun Tzu's flexibility, adaptation, and psychological advantage is not a philosopher explosion. This is a financial discipline. But the deepest financial understanding touches the structure of the book. Every sentence is related to the cost of the opportunity. Each choice allows a manager to approach a cheaper selection. Sun Tzu does not fight, he is against waste. And the final wastes in his perspective are battles that they do not have to fight. Therefore, the resistance of blood from Bok praised the generals of whipping, diplomacy, fear, misleading, or respect. The winners by establishing alliances. According to Sun Tzu, these are not secondary strategies, they are primary, because they can serve the limited resources of the state. In one of the most remarkable passages, he expresses the kingdoms of directors who enjoy battle for their own interests. It carries a cold accounting principle behind the poet language. If you consider the battle as a responsibility instead of a passion, then your asset will disappear. What makes Sun Tzu even more clear in the financial statement is how successful, or fails, the states of those who listen to it. Some kingdoms have made their wealth vulnerable to internal riots by unloading tax foundations. Others have made quick attacks to avoid the economic spiral of alliances and long-term conflicts by adopting the logic of Sun Tzu. The governments seen as a financial instrument were able to maintain their assets for a longer time with its strategically expanding gains. The war was unsuccessful if they are prone to honor or rough power. The theories of Sun Tzu did not stay in theory, proved the accuracy of the historical process. At this point the story turns out that the story becomes more contemporary than old analysis. Because the disturbing fact is that Sun Tzu's alerts reflect their impressions from the big conflicts in the last 2 centuries. Modern states are still trying to avoid repeating the same errors. The long-term economic impacts come into battle without being added to the account. As a result, the budgets are greatly damaged. The state of the Soviet Union in Afghanistan is an example of the US war in Vietnam and the imperial forces in the First World War. These conflicts were not lost due to the weakness of the army. The reason for loss was the collapse of the economic model behind. Sun Tzu would immediately notice this situation. Long-term battles lead to faster weakening than the enemy of the state. Meanwhile, tools like intelligence, deception, targeted operations, and fast maneuver have become the basic elements of modern strategy because these are more cost-effective. Cyber battles are the principles of Sun Tzu. It's like proxy battles do not affect operations and strengthen strategic deterrent. All these approaches are aimed at achieving maximum impact with minimal financial risk. The most powerful states of the world still live in the shadow of Sun Tzu's teachings. A separate matter if they are aware of it. But the most pronounced modern example of its effect is the change in the national power understandings of the nation. Sun Tzu believed that the power of a state is not only from the army, but from its economic endurance. It was capable of absorption shocks and maintaining its functionality. In a period of the collapse of the conflicts, campaigns carried out with military budgets faced with similar dilemmas of large forces. Sun Tzu may not know the technology to recognize mathematics, but a deeper lesson is the fact that most people are ignored. Sun Tzu teaches how to win the battle to executives, not how to avoid the national Eiflastain. The fact Diha understands that the cost of the conflict exceeds itself. States will not fail because they lose their battles, not because they are consistent and functional. With anthropological perspective, victory loses its meaning if financial resources are collapsed. The best battle is a battle that you don't have to end your economy. This refers to a perspective that the martial art reaches a completely different size. This is a work beyond a book on courage or aggression. This is a work written on limitations. This does not mention excessively strengthened competitors related to them. Sun Tzu does not win victory, it provides stability. According to him, a manager who managed to protect resources is one of the wiser than a manager who conquers cities. A general from Gallop without battle is smarter than a general that destroys hordes, and it is a state that it knows that it is stronger than those who are moving without motion. Sun Tzu's philosophy is not a warrior's philosophy, but it's a responsible manager philosophy for the long-term settlement of a nation. As a result, Sun Tzu's financial intelligence lies in the rejection of separation between power and economy. If you watch here, you will love our video. Then click the liking button to show it to the whole world. He understood that 2 elements are integral. The battle is the most cost-effective political decision that a state can take, and this cost points the manager's own death order. Its message is simple, timeless, and consistently valid. The power is measured not with how difficult your strike is, but with how much the strike will cost you. And when history crossed financial systems, it shows that the most bold nation is not the most economical discipline. Date is not repeating, moving. However, if you do not understand it, you will have to endure the cost of it. If this gives you a new perspective, consider it on it. Offers answers to your questions. Thank you for your watch. If you still haven't subscribed to our channel, you can subscribe with the subscriber button at the bottom.